So if you're not part of a critique group and you really want to take your writing to the next level, that is the best way. Not only are you getting feedback on your writing, but you get to see what everyone else's writing is, and you develop a sense of when the writing is good and when it's not, and also develop the ability to say why the writing is not good. And that's especially valuable. How many times have you seen a movie and you've gone, well, I didn't like it, but you can't explain why? So the ability to explain why helps you to be able to point out the weaknesses in your own writing and pinpoint them exactly why they're wrong and what's bad about them and how to fix them. So I encourage you, if you're not part of a critique group, find one quick. You want to talk about our speaker here, Taylor Moore. I met Taylor at what's now been renamed. It was the Last Tuesday Writers Group, and we just enjoy getting to know Taylor and looking forward to his presentation. Please introduce.
Welcome to our first meeting of 2018, and we're kicking it off with a really great program. I think you're all going to enjoy this. It doesn't matter if you write spy thrillers or anything of that nature. It's just going to be interesting, and I don't know anything about the CIA, and I would be willing to wager that you don't either. Just what we hear on TV, is that true? I doubt it. So Taylor is going to tell us exactly how it is, the real world that they see, and it's not anything like we view the world. So he comes from, he's a sixth generation Texan, and he grew up on a farm and ranch in Brazos County. He received a degree in journalism from Texas A&M, followed by a master's in public policy at Pepperdine.
Say that fast.
Okay. Yeah. After traveling extensively in Latin America and completing a graduate level internship at the U.S. mission to the European Union, he was recruited by the CIA. And he writes some of the best stories that I've been privileged to read. And I would also be willing to wager he's going to be the next Tom Clancy. So
Come on down.
Well, no pressure there, huh? Awesome name. All right, I'll take that. Thanks, Mike and Linda, and thanks to the Texas High Plain Riders for having me. It's a tremendous honor. And thanks for everybody who came out today. I mean, this is a tremendous turnout, and I'm really excited, and I thank you guys for coming. I'm particularly excited to be here in January, the first event of the season. Because if you're a writer, you all know, first of the year, you better have big plans, right? I want to see a show of hands. Who in 2018 has big plans for their writing? Okay, pretty much every hand. Does anybody not have big plans? Okay, one gentleman raised his hand. Sir, you will be waterboarded after this. The meetings will continue until morale improves. That's what we are. So I started out with the photo here of James Bond and the Aston Martin. Now I've got to ask you guys, is there any more iconic spy than James Bond in the entire world? So I asked that, I asked that as a rhetorical question, but I asked that seriously. I mean, who are some other iconic spies? Is there anybody more iconic than James Bond?
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers? We're going to get to Austin Powers. We're going to get to Austin Powers. Anybody else?
Jack Ryan.
Jack Ryan. Speaking of Tom Clancy, Jack Ryan. What about, who's another one? Who's the one that's always on the run and everybody's trying to kill him?
Jason Bourne.
Jason Bourne. Robert Ludlum.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So let me ask you this question. I think we all kind of agree that James Bond is the most iconic spy. But let me ask you this. Is this James Bond, Daniel Craig, is that the most iconic spy?
Yes.
No.
Back it up. Who? Okay. Sean Connery. What about Roger Moore? What do you mean no? That was my era. Roger Moore sang it. When I was a kid, I went to the movie. That was Roger Moore. Okay, well, I bring this up kind of, we can all laugh about it, but also because we're going to kind of get into this, is what is a spy thriller? What does it mean to be writing in the genre? Is it one thing? Is it a lot of things? Is it Austin Powers? Is it James Bond? Is it Jack Ryan? Who is it? Because I've been brainwashed by the Rand Corporation years ago, I have to do my PowerPoint presentations in a certain way, and so we're going to start off with a nice agenda. And before I do, guys, I'm going to apologize in advance. I've had the flu for the past 4 days, so you're going to hear my voice a little bit. You may hear me hacking away, and I even brought my chair here, so if I sit, it's not because I'm lazy or I'm trying to be, inside the actor studio or anything. I legitimately do not have a whole lot of energy, so I'm just powering through, so bear with me. And I have my lovely wife here, Diana, and she's running the slide. She's been my nurse. I've been sick, and our 3-year-old daughter's been sick. My poor wife and her mother has been sick. So this epidemic is just, I'm ready for it to be over with. Anyhow, so guys, I'm going to run through this, and I'll kind of tell you what we're going to go through, just so you'll know if you have questions. You can stop me anytime, that's fine. At the same time, you might see that we're going to get to an area that, I'll cover a particular topic. So I'm going to first go over and give you a little bit of my background. We're going to talk about picking the right story for you. Defining the genre, what it means, what's a thriller, what's a mystery, what is suspense. I'm going to tell you, once you pick this out, kind of what you want to do, how to go about doing this, how to put a story like this together. We're going to take a brief break, and then we'll come back and do a couple of writing exercises, just some fun exercises, nothing hard. If you want to participate, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine too. If you want to sit in the back of the room like a goon, like I usually do, and don't participate, that's fine. And then we'll do, I'll show you what makes a great ending and a great hook, and then finally, just some general thoughts and advice, and I'll open it up to questions if you have any. Okay, excuse me again. Who am I and why am I here? Isn't that pretty much the theme of every Jason Bourne story that you've ever seen? Okay, so Jason Bourne, so I have the caption there. My wife saw this. I got to pick on her because she saw this just. She goes, I don't remember him saying that in a movie. So I'll just go ahead and tell you guys in advance. None of the captions are really from the movies. I just made because look at this. Totally cool. He should have said that, right? I mean, he volunteered for it. Did he not? Come on, Jason. Jeez. But anyhow, he was always running, always fighting, and that's the push of a thriller, right? I mean, the guy that's in this terrible turmoil, trying to get out of it. So a little bit background on me. I went to Texas A&M University, got a degree in journalism. I got a master's in public policy where I studied economics and international relations. I had some international exposure in Europe and Latin America, and traveled abroad, worked abroad, was recruited into the CIA, and then left the CIA after about 4 years and went into defense contracting, doing the similar type work for the military. So I've got a little bit of a military/CIA intelligence background. My writing history, I started writing full-time in 2017, and I am currently working on the fourth novel somewhere. This summer, I had a completed draft. I submitted to agents, had some good luck with some interest. I got some really good feedback from an agent that had worked with Tom Clancy in the past, represents an author that I really like and admire and want to write like. And he actually, he said he liked my work, he said he liked the story, liked the writing, but there's a few things that I was missing that publishers are looking for. And so he gave me some really good feedback. So I went back and retooled the book, and I'm done with the book. I'm actually in the process of editing and just polishing up at this point, so just so you know. And then so after that, I plan to resubmit. But something's going to happen. I don't know if I'll end up self-publishing or getting an agent and going the traditional route. I don't know. But something's going to happen. I'm going to make it happen. I can promise you that.
Yes.
Okay, from Tom Clancy to Tom Robbins. Everybody knows who Tom Clancy is. Does anybody know who Tom Robbins is?
Oh, yes.
Okay, you guys know Tom Robbins. Okay, well, he's not a thriller writer, but he did write a book about the CIA called Invalids Home from Hot Climates. And it's good. It's fun. And the reason I put these things up is because you know, if you're out there and you're thinking, man, okay, that's great, Taylor. You were in the CIA, you did all this stuff. It's going to be easy for you to write that. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit easier for me, but I want everybody to know that you can write a spy novel, and it doesn't have to be the Tom Clancy thriller. There's all types of books that you can write in the genre, and that's fine. There's a few questions. If you haven't started this at all and you're thinking about doing this, they seem like kind of simple questions, but they're actually very important. And I found out kind of the hard way when I started writing. I just started writing, and I didn't really know who my audience was going to be. And so if you haven't done this at all, I want you to take these questions seriously and ask yourself, who do you want to be as a writer? What is your benchmark for success? It could be you want to be a New York Times bestseller. Or it could be you want to write something for your wife and kids or your husband and kids that they enjoy. Either way is fine, but what's your benchmark for success? What do you want to be known for? Tom Clancy was so good at research, he actually was investigated by the FBI for, they thought he was getting classified information. He was going to the Library of Congress and finding that stuff. Now, that's a compliment, isn't it? That is a compliment that you've done your research. Who will be at your book signing? All right, Tom Clancy has people like my dad at his book signing, or used to. Tom Robbins? I don't know. Who's that Tom Robbins? I mean, probably Ryan McSwain. Where's Ryan? I'd be out there in his pork pie hat and hanging out and wait for but that's fine, But these are things to start thinking about as you start figuring out what you want to write. Spy stories are all the same, aren't they? Well, so what I want to start with, we talk about the mystery versus thriller versus suspense. And guys, I'm going to take a seat if you don't mind, just to kind of save my energy here a little bit. So I'm going to start with the thriller because that's probably more traditional. And by the way, can you guys hear me okay? I know my voice is kind of cracking.
It is when you hold it closer.
Closer is better? Okay, guys. I want it to crack, but okay. So thriller is probably what we traditionally think about in the genre, not necessarily mystery, but you see all these different ones and you hear all these terms thrown out. And so when I started doing this, it was so confusing and so convoluted. I said, I'm going to put all this together for everyone so they're going to be able to figure this out. And let me tell you guys, when you're done here today, you're going to be more confused than you ever were. I have come to the conclusion, I took to the internet, I took to nonfiction books I have on Twitter. There's no definition that's right. And I've talked to people that have been writing for years, and nobody seems to know. But I think just having a few basic ideas and definitions and understanding of what each are is helpful. So your classic thriller. Tom Clancy's Hunt for Red October. Does it get any better than that when it comes to the spy thriller genre novel? I don't think so, but it's the how can we stop them from doing it is the sort of basic line. So Hunt for Red October is a good one. If I wanted to simplify it, I probably could have had one or more of a classic. Here's the terrorists. They're going to blow something up. Your hero's out there to stop them from doing it. And I'm gonna turn to my page here just so I don't have to keep referring back. The hero has a mission to foil. You might not know, or you might know who the killer is from the beginning, but you're riveted by the chase. Action needs to be punctuated by key moments and key events. There's a sudden rush of emotions, apprehension, and exhilaration. Characters are in terrible trouble. And your heroes are pitted against villains determined to destroy them, their country, or the free world. All that sounds pretty familiar, right? Okay, well that's good, and that's fine. But it's helpful, and it took a lot of, different sites to go to kind of piece these together, believe it or not. So if you're getting started in the genre, these are just a few things to sort of have by your side as you're outlining and start thinking, okay, is my story contain these elements? Okay, the mystery. There aren't a lot of, honestly, I don't think as many mysteries in the genre as when we think of like spy thrillers. It's not typically aren't mysteries. However, Nelson DeMille, I think, probably comes the closest. If you ever read any of those, like The General's Daughter. Now, the mystery is a classic whodunit. The hero has a mission to find a killer, solve the crime, stop the kidnapper, or whatever it is, find the person they kidnapped. They might not know who the killer is until the very end. You have a well-defined protagonist, and that includes the physical and mental traits. Other important secondary characters are the suspects involved, sometimes equally as important as the main character. Lots of clues, some of which are put in there to throw the reader off the trail. You have scenes that are easy to visualize. And this is important. If you don't write good scenes, you should really think hard about this, because I mean, if you're going into a murder scene, you don't want to, say, the hero walked in and found the person dead, then he went on to the next thing. I mean, you got to really be able to tell what the room looked like, because the reader's going to be going through this. This is an actual mystery. They're going through it with the hero trying to solve the crime. So they're going to need to see all the clues and get a good visual image in their head. And a believable solution. I think we've all read books, seen movies that end up coming, you end up coming away with it a little bit disappointed, right? I mean, have we all done that? You go, oh, really? That's how you solve that. So unless you can come up with something good, I wouldn't even venture into the mystery genre at all. But that's what makes it good. Is the good, believable solution in the end that blows your mind. So suspense. And I put this more back into when we talk about the original thriller, when we talk about a spy novel, I think this falls back into suspense. A few of the things that I read about this, it says you might know who the killer is in the very beginning, but there's a slower pace, and you're riveted by the danger. The reader sees viewpoint of both protagonist and antagonist. You're working against the clock. Stakes must be high. Lots of pressure, insurmountable odds. The monkey wrench is your friend, and by that I mean you want to screw things up for your protagonist. You don't want things to be too easy. You want there to be stumbling blocks and hurdles along the way. And a good hero and a good villain. And I think that sounds sort of obvious, but a good villain goes a long way. I recently read Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six, and I kind of came away from the book a little bit. The protagonist, I kind of skimmed through that. Yeah, that's interesting. But they had a great villain. I mean, really interesting. So much to the point where I kind of was rooting for them in the end, because I wanted to see how this was, how it was all going to turn out if things worked out the way they wanted it to. And I know that's probably not what Tom Clancy was going for, but at the end of the day, I stuck with the book and enjoyed it till the end. So this is sort of a bonus slide. I put this in there, and it seemed like I told you we'd get to Austin Powers, your iconic spy. And this kind of sums up what we were just talking about. What is a spy novel? What can it be? So on the left you have George Smiley, the famous John le Carré's Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy series. This is a more serious spy thriller genre. Reader is going to read these. Austin Powers, obviously not key in literature, but it's a favorite, isn't it? I mean, it's pretty much a favorite for everyone. And here you have two British spies, both nicely dressed, both wearing glasses, both from around the same time period, but two people that couldn't be more different, right? But that's kind of what I want to say is there's a lot of leeway when it comes to writing these things. And that's where I want to encourage you guys. And knock down any walls that you might have when you think, this isn't my genre, or this isn't something that I can do because I don't have the level of expertise, or, and I said, does, horror, sci-fi, and humor belong in the genre? And I think it does. I mean, I think you just have to be very upfront with your reader when it comes to what they're going to get in terms of a spy novel. And I learned that the hard way. And I threw this in, I said kind of as a bonus slide, because I had a beta reader that was a really good one for me, and he read the first draft of the first book that I did, and the guy, the first half, he just couldn't have loved it more. And this guy was a special forces operator, a current counterterrorism analyst. And he got to the middle, and he just couldn't have hated it more after that. And I said, well, what happened? And he said, well, I had some things that were kind of high technology. And he goes, I just thought it was totally believable, and you threw that garbage in there, and it was just stupid. So, okay, I think it would have been okay had I been up front with him. I think he felt tricked. I think that he thought there was a little bit of a bait and switch into one thing to the next. So I think all these things are okay as long as you're very upfront with the reader. All right. So, do we really want to do this? We've decided here. We've kind of talked about a little bit about what it means to be to write in the genre, to come up with these certain ideas that we might have for writing. And now that you've thought about it, do we really want to do this? Now, you see James Bond here. He's saying, let's get to know each other first. No. Has James Bond ever in the history of James Bond said, let's get to know each other first? Before that even ever got out of his mouth, they're already in the sack, right? Let's be honest here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a little bit how to do the research, get in the right frame of mind, develop a great story, develop action and intrigue, create incredible characters, and then have a satisfying ending and a great hook to your book. So, where do I find good intel? Well, what I want you to start doing if you're out there, I want you to start thinking like an intel analyst. So this, fortunately for you guys, I've done the hard work for you. So I'm going to go through the different sources that are out there and then tell you about my favorites and kind of how to become a subject matter expert. So the internet, Google, Wikipedia. I mean, I put that out there because Google's a writer's best friend, isn't it? I mean, we all use Google. Wikipedia, you know, when I was an Intel guy, everybody said, oh, Wikipedia, don't ever use that. I mean, it's a bunch of garbage. Well, you know, it's not. I mean, I go back and I look at it all the time, and I think the idea is just checking your sources if you're trying to do general research on terrorist organizations or wherever. It's good, you know, good for that kind of thing. So I recommend that. The second media, traditional news outlets. So over the course of the year, over 2017, man, I hit it hard when I treated it like I was back in the Intel business. I got up every morning. My wife can tell I get up at 5 in the morning, 5:30. And I started hitting the news, see what happened overnight. And I found that over time, traditional media, and that's from your news, from your newspapers to your cable news to whatever, it's probably the worst source that I found for information. Just because it typically it's misleading a lot of times, and it's usually meant, I think, more to influence than to inform. And you end up coming away, I mean, I think over the course of a year, I came away just thinking, I'm just going to cut this out because it's just not, it's making me dumber, you know? So, you know, I mean, and that's just my personal opinion. It's just what I found after really, you know, using a lot of sources. The things that I did find that really helped were military technology journals, like the MIT Technology Review, things like that. People and there's similar military journals that are out there like that. Find those because they're writing for a specific audience, not a general audience, and they can't be wrong, and they can't tell you the wrong story or the wrong facts because nobody will read them and they'll go out of business, you know. And so that's what I found. Subject matter experts are another great source. And you may say, and I've used a lot of good ones. And you may say, well, you were in the CIA, you work with the military, you have access to these guys. You know, two of my best sources, one was a current Special Forces guy, a Special Forces captain. I met him at my parents' swimming pool at the country club. So it had nothing to do with the CIA, and this guy has he not, Diana, been above and beyond awesome for my writing and to help me out. Another guy I met through just a work connection at one point. His son had been a special operations guy. Been there, done that, bought the T-shirt in every part of the world you can imagine. And nothing to do with my background, just happened to meet the guy and ask for an introduction. Around here you have Pantex. I mean, and those guys aren't going to talk to you about Pantex, but a lot of these, you know, people will tell you about, you know, former military or whatever, and they'll tell you about that kind of world. Use your contacts. If you know someone, ask. And there's bound to be people that can help you out. That's a really good source. Nonfiction books, excellent. I typically find nonfiction books still have that level of scrutiny for truth that the media doesn't always have. They really, I mean, I tell you, the hard part about the nonfiction books is that they're just long and it's cumbersome and it's time consuming to sit down there and read these things to become an expert. But it's worth it. You're going to get the real deal story on what's happening in the world. and how the industry or how the agencies and how the intel community really works. Film and movies is always good, and again that depends. Zero Dark 30 is always my go-to. Syriana, people ask me about. I always say it's a go-to. Syriana was based off of Bob Baer, a book called See No Evil, I believe it was called. Bob Baer was a former Near East Division case officer. I was in Near East Division. I recommend both the book and the movie. And people always say, if you've seen Syriana, people will tell me, they go, man, it was really boring and really confusing. And I'll say, that's how the CIA really was. Yeah, most of it's boring and a lot of it's confusing, yeah.
How do you spell that? S-Y?
Syriana.
Thank you.
Yeah, so you can see George Clooney, so. And then, your fiction books, they say read the genre. And I mean, I think, people say that's like, yeah, read the genre. I just can't tell you enough. I mean, I go to the library and I'll always have a big pile of books by my bedside table. And I don't even read them all. I'll read 100 pages or I'll thumb through, but I like to get an idea of how people are doing things. And let me tell you, I mean, it has helped tremendously. My favorites, so I can just kind of, as I said, I cut out the media, which is hard, I know, because that's where you follow most of, that's what's current events are happening. There's an organization called Stratfor, it stands for Strategic Forecasting. I used this when I was in Intel. Full disclosure, I don't have an account right now because it's expensive. I need one. I just need to do it. It is the closest thing to real intelligence, in my opinion, that you're going to get. And it's just a subscription service that you get to this website. But it's very good if you really want to know what's going on in the world from real folks that know Intel. Stratfor. SoftRep, that's another subscription service, I say slightly cheaper, way cheaper. I recommend Stratfor. It's an organization of former special operations folks and CIA people that are commenting on what's going on in the world. Very good. I-24 News, that's free, and I have the app on my phone. It's out of Israel, and somebody had told me a while back that it's supposed to be that they pride themselves on like a non-bias, and I found to the most degree that's true. The only problem is it's kind of has an Israeli focus, which is good for me because I'm writing on the Middle East and that area, which is what they focus on. So and it does cover some U.S. Events, but it's a good one. I recommend that. Defense One, another it caters to the defenses, armed forces, but very good. Will keep you up to breast and up to speed on what's going on. Fabius Maximus is another one. It's a little more political, a little more highbrow political. But I would recommend it. It's one of those things, I don't know if it's liberal or conservative or what it is. They kind of just tend to have articles out that are just, they're kind of keeping up with times and what's changing and what's going on in the world and how safe are we, that kind of thing. And then finally, BBC News is a good one to look at. It's a little more left to center, but it's going to tell you stories, and you're going to get stories from BBC that you're not going to find them anywhere but BBC. And they're good, and they're well done, they're well written. And I have major plot points in my novels and my outlines from what I found on BBC. And then finally, become a subject matter expert. SME, that's what we call it in the military. And the reason you did this is because there's a lot of experts and there's a lot of smart people out there. So the idea was to find one thing that you could be smarter than anyone else. And so whenever that time came that, some major, thing happened, maybe you became the cyber guy on Venezuela or something, I don't know, whatever. You knew more than everybody else in the world about that. Well, then they called on you. And so, but I'm trying to do that as a writer too. I'm trying to become a subject matter expert on the CIA Special Activities Division, which is what I'm writing on. And it's not easy because it's probably one of the most secretive organizations in the world. And I used to be in the building and I still don't know that much about it, and that's fine. I'll make it up. Who's never know, right? Think like a spook. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to go through a little bit of trying to break you out of your shell. The CIA is very different in that it's a strange organization because, they think these people that you have to pass the highest level of polygraph and have pretty much a squeaky clean background, and they bring you in and do nothing but teach you how to lie and break the law. I mean, it's really strange, right? I mean, so when you start to think like a spook, when you start to think outside the box and realize that, there's the truth and then there's the truth, like there's things get done for a reason. So I want to break out of your shell and start thinking too about, and that was one thing I learned when I got in the CIA. We live in this world where we think everybody's out for the betterment of everyone else and all these countries and, it's kumbaya. It's not, man. Countries have interest, and that's just the bottom line. When I was in the CIA, your job is to steal secrets. It is. It's not to go around and make. Ideally, you're making the world safer as you're doing these things, but the idea is that you're protecting your country. And I got news for you, everybody. I mean, the rest of the world is doing this too. Even the Europeans, they're doing it. I remember a few years ago, I think it was when all the Snowden leaks, or I can't remember who, or all this stuff was coming out. And I remember a line that came out from Colin Powell, because they said that there was this idea that we were spying on our friends, and everybody was outraged. And I remember Colin Powell said, "You'll notice that the people in Europe will be pretty mad, but not that mad." I don't think everybody knew what he meant, but I did. They're doing it to us. They're doing it to us. I mean, and so as soon as they start, getting too mad, we might go, oh, what's that weird building over there down in Washington? How's all those antennas coming out of it? So a few little things that came up just to keep by your side as you're outlining. Trust no one. Remember, everyone is out to get you, and that means everyone. You have no friends. Assume everything is a trap. Remember, there's always an agenda and an ulterior motive. Find it. Do the opposite of what people expect you to do. Not to the point where it makes your character, if it's something out of character, that they shouldn't do, make them do it. But do the unexpected every now and then. Remember, there are no smoking guns, but if there is one, ask yourself, why are you being allowed to see it? Chances are it's not what you think. And then live in isolation. Isolate your characters. That's always good in a spy novel. Have them trust no one and be totally on their own. Right.
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Could you give an example? Probably not a specific example, but what you mean by a trap? What would that look like in
So let me, an example of a trap. I think, and I've been writing this in the rewrite for this book. Whenever my hero, even within the CIA, when his boss, even the boss that he sort of trusts, gives him a new assignment, he asks like, okay, why are you giving this to me? What's in it? Why am I getting this passed over? Why am I getting the chance to really prove myself here and do this great thing? Why doesn't anybody else want it? And I'll tell you, the CIA was kind of like that. I mean, it was a funny organization where as soon as you got a promotion or something, like, you're promoting me for some reason because I'll need to get this level so you can blame me for this event that's going to happen. And everybody thinks that way, and it's funny. You laugh at you after a while. And I don't mean it's a great organization, but it's just you get that many type A's, you train them to subterfuge and trickery, and there's a fair amount of paranoia. So that's what I mean. Everything is a trap.
Gotcha.
So next slide, please. Excuse me. Somebody might. Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. Yeah, I like the sippy cup. Oh man. All right. Welcome to the dark side. No kidding. That is what when I started out as an analyst at the CIA, and when I moved over to the operations, people literally told me, "Welcome to the dark side," and it's meant as kind of a joke, but not really. I mean, you're going to the dark side, and so that's that's the side that you need to go to as a writer when you start writing on this. You need to go to the dark side, start seeing the world as the CIA sees it. I took a line, don't think black and white, think gray, and that was from a Tom Clancy, Clear and Present Danger, if anybody remembers that line. And then going back to what I was telling you earlier, they take these great, these people that pass the polygraph, squeaky clean, and they train you just to break the law and lie and go into countries and just do all kinds of things. And so it's great, you're not supposed to break the rules until you are. So challenge your own system of beliefs. And, I literally do, if you go in my office right now, I've got Machiavelli, Sun Tzu, Julius Caesar, Henry Kissinger. And as I saw this list, I felt bad for poor Henry Kissinger. I threw him in there with like Machiavelli. But there is a certain amount of that, what they call realpolitik. It's this idea that you're maneuvering for the state on behalf of the state, not on behalf of anyone else. And as I said, countries have interests, and that's just a reality. And when you're writing on this, think of it in that way. We're moving on behalf of our country, not on behalf of anyone else. Make your good guys bad, your bad guys good. I use the Willem Dafoe character. If you've read, he's a guy, he was sort of a secondary character turned main character in some of Clancy's books. And I think it was Without Remorse, he has a famous scene where he tortures someone. So, typically speaking, in America, torture is not something that we, smile at or welcome. But in the books and a novel, boy, better believe it's welcomed and enjoyed. So, feel free to go to the dark side on this. Assign motivation to your characters that are real and identifiable. And I said, think Unbreakable, not Superman. And I know not probably everybody knows the Unbreakable example. Have you seen Unbreakable? Show of hands or seen the movie. But, I don't want to give it away if you haven't. But, remember in the end, it kind of comes away that the villain has... it's believable why he becomes the villain. Juxtaposed to say, and this is made fun of in the Austin Powers movies, the old Superman where it's like, I'm Lex Luthor, I just want, all the gold in Fort Knox. And, you remember it's kind of like Dr. Evil, I want, however many millions of dollars, and like, sir, your company alone is worth $100 billion, and it's like, well, why are these guys being evil just to be evil? Come up with legitimate reasons for them to be evil. And lastly, I just challenge the boundaries of morality. Trust me, it's fun. It is. I torture people and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And they had it coming, trust me.
Your book or?
In the books.
So does the FBI ever come looking at your browser history?
If they did, man, they would be in for some interesting stuff. I've thought about that a ton. I guess the only thing I could say is that I have the novel there, sitting there to prove what I've been working on and why I was looking at my but no, I've actually thought about that before. Guys, if we can take a few minutes just to take a restroom break or get some more food or whatever, and I could try to rehydrate a little bit.